Welcome to Indie Gems, the video series where I share my thoughts and opinions on the newest independent comic books that I read for the current comic book week. I'm Mike Spider Slayer. Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. If you love daily comic book content and you always like me helping you make decisions on what comic books to buy, and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, guys, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and hit that button. Yeah, this show is pretty awesome. It's dedicated to the independent comics only, and each comic I reward its own gem. Now, what are the gems? Well, let's go run down it real quick if you're new to this series. Starting from the lowest tier, if a book receives a brown gem, it means it's pretty crappy, right? If you get a blue gem, it is an ice cold comic book. If it receives a purple gem, and then that means it's like mid or good, it's average, so around there. And then you get the orange gem, which means that the book is on fire. And then you get the red gem, which means it is a top pick in my eyes. So now that you got the rundown, let's get started with this week's episode. The first book we're talking about today is Nightclub 2. This is issue 5, the penultimate issue. It's hard to believe that this book is ending very soon. 28 pages for the price of $5. It's written by Mark Millar, and the art is done by Juanin Ramirez. The artwork has always got its distinct feel to it. I love when the characters are in their vampire mode and they like transform from like human to bats and all this different stuff. It's very violent. It pushes the envelope, and that's what I like about this series. And it's been a really cool ride of this boy who became a vampire, and he used his vampirism for good. And on top of it, he wanted to be famous. So he became a YouTube star, a hero. He had 2 friends that he infected to join his little cause, and he called it the Nightclub. And in the second volume, we got to see one of the better friends or best friends got jealous of the two's relationship in the comic book, and which his name is Sam, and he wound up going out on his own. He found a girlfriend, and he's like, oh, you want to be together forever? And he infected her, and you find out she was using him, and she infected her boyfriend, and then now there's this evil gang out there. And bad things happen to the other 2. And Amy, which is a female that lived, in this issue, is trying to figure out a way to bring back her friends, Danny and Sam. And it's a pretty disgusting way, the way it's done. And in this particular issue, it was good to see that. There wasn't a lot of action in here. We get to see, again, a lot of them being brought back into the comic. And then we get to see, again, the gang members kind of make their presence felt in the comic. But it's all a setup to get a pretty awesome ending. This is a book that I definitely would recommend any day of the week. Read volume 1, read the second volume, and I think you'll absolutely love it. So this is rewarded that yellow or orange gem, I should say, which is the book that means it's on fire. A little bit of a slower issue, maybe not necessarily my favorite issue of the series, but it still was really good. And let me know in the comments below if you guys are still reading this. Just a heads up, there was a lot of books this week that my shop did not receive because of delays or whatnot, and it seemed to be on the independent side of things. So I had to read these books online digitally. And the next book we're going to talk about is Redcoat. This is issue 9, 32 pages for the price of $4. This book is written by Jeff Johns. The art's done by Brian Hitch. And it's a great book. I think the characters look phenomenal. I think Simon Pure looks nice. We got Johnny Appleseed in this comic book, who is just like this carefree, happy-go-lucky soul. And we wind up getting to see these 2 hang out with each other, and they really balance each other out. And they're set out on this mission to stop this arsonist who's like set this town on fire, and they got to figure out a way to take this guy in but without hurting him. And Simon doesn't know really how to do anything else but kill people. Like, he's hired to do that. So Johnny Appleseed is sitting there trying to help balance out his personality. They wind up getting in arguments. There's this big apple that forms with this gigantic worm, and it's just absolutely awesome. It's just a fun little one and done type of story to see these two interact with each other, which is great. The only thing I would say is that Jeff Johns did put quite the story in here to really get a feel of who Johnny Appleseed is. So it's a little wordy at times. So take your time to, digest this story, read this book on its own. Don't read back to back to back because you might be tired of reading and you might be like, oh, I don't want to read this, But overall, this book is rewarded once again, the Orange Gem. It's such an intriguing story, and we get introduced to another new character by the time we get to the end of this one, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Now, do we have an overarching story going forward? I'm not sure yet. So right now, we get a couple just one-and-done issues with Redcoat. Let me know what you think of this series down below. Thundercats, ho! This is issue 12 of Thundercats, guys. This book is a $5 comic. It's written by Declan Shavley, and the art is done by Drew Moss. This is one of the few independent books that I actually got physically. So here's your interior artwork. Again, I've said this before when it comes to Thundercats. It's not my favorite artwork. I would love to see a little bit more detail when it comes to like your favorite characters. So it's a little bit flat for me. In this book, we wind up getting to see a lot of the Calico character. And it looks like she ran away from the cat's lair, and she's got the Eye of Thundera with her, or the Sword of Omens, I should say. Now, again, I just jumped onto this book again in issue 11 because it had to do with that cool one-shot. And in the last issue, we wind up getting to see a cool battle with, partial battle, or the beginning of a battle with Mumra and Lion-O. And I was, really anxiously awaiting that in this issue, the continuation. And you don't really get that in this issue, so I was disappointed with that. Instead, we get a lot of dialogue between Tigra and Chitara. They hooked up with each other, and you wind up getting to see kind of where our certain characters are and what they're doing at this moment. They're trying to get this particular resource to keep their cat's lair in check. And the only thing that you wind up getting to see that had to deal with the last issue really was you see Lion-O, who obviously got defeated by Mumra. Now, I'm disappointed by that because I would have loved to see more of that battle and see him lose against Mumra here, right? So, at the end of the day, I rewarded this book with the Purple Gem. I thought it was okay. It wasn't the best book that I read this week, but it was still fun, and I am still interested to see the direction of this book and where it's going to go from here. Our next book is another Ghost Machine imprint book, and this one is Hornsby and Halo. This is issue 3. This is two children that are part of heaven and hell and put in opposite families to prevent an actual war from happening. This is 32 pages for the price of $4, written by Peter J. Tomasi. The art is done by Peter Schnasberg. I totally said that name wrong. Anyway, the art's not bad in this comic book. It's kind of cartoony. It's bright. It's colorful. It definitely gives these characters life, which you could appreciate in here. You get to see some zombies in this comic book that show up at the end. And really, you've been really introduced in these past couple issues of who our two characters are, kind of where they came from, and they're discovering these powers that they have, and they don't realize that it's them. One girl I think her name is Rose, who is this devil-like creature, and then you get the boy who's the angel, and he's with the hellish people, and she's with the heaven people, and again, it's to prevent this war. And you've been discovering who they are, and they seem to be getting in tight situations every single issue, and then in this particular issue, they kind of team up together for the first time, and I think they realize that they're these entities, right? Maybe not known what they're here for yet, but they realize that, oh shit, this is me, and we're working together here to fight these freaking zombies, right? For some reason, there's something about this book that I'm just not getting into. I don't know what it is. Maybe I don't care about the main characters enough. Maybe the plot is not thick enough. There's just something missing for me in this series. So with that being said, for me, I'm rewarding this one the blue gem, which means, yeah, guys, it's just ice cold for me. There's nothing here that's hitting it out of the park that's going, oh my God, I gotta buy the next issue. It's kind of more like, all right, we'll give it another issue and we'll see where it's actually going. It's that type of book for me. Do you agree or disagree? The next book we're talking about is Mark Spears' Monsters. This is issue 3. This is a $6 comic written and drawn by Mark Spears. Lucky enough to get my copy of issue 3. Now, I did put this book on my pull list before it was even launched, just because I knew it was coming out, since I did promote Mark Spears' Kickstarter originally, and he kind of gave me an insight of like when it was coming out and hitting the store shelves. So a lot of people ask me, Mike, how do you get this book? Because I can't find it at my shop. Go to your shop, ask them to see if they can put it on your pull list. They should be able to do that. They should be able to get in touch with KeenSpot and just treat it just like every other comic book, guys. So it is definitely possible if you could do it ahead of time, right? Especially before an FOC or whatnot. But anyway, when it comes to the artwork in this comic, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's what you can expect from a Mark Spears comic, right? I mean, what you see on the cover is what you get to see in the interior art. Now, this book is not full of dialogue. It's very much almost like a visual storytelling type of book, but there is a decent story here. Now, the only thing I could say is that issues do take a little while to come out. It seems like every 2 months or so we seem to get an issue. So it's very easy to forget what happens in the Mark Spears comic, because there is a lot of lore that's going in there. It has to deal with a lot of different monsters and moving parts. In this issue, you wind up getting to see the mysterious retired monster hunter Slayer go against this monster. And there's just some funny ass lines in this comic book when this guy is beating Slayer's ass and he's like, ring, ring, bitch. He's like, I'm gonna beat you, ring, ring. And then Slayer winds up winning, and he's just like, he just says a line here that cracks me up. And it's great. It's absolutely awesome. There's some detectives that are exploring some murders that are going on. There's mysterious dead cattle all over the place that's, appearing in the fields. You got this situation that's going on with these kids in here, which is cool, and they're playing like a Monsters video game. This book is just a lot of fun, and the artwork is top notch. So at the end of the day, I'm going to reward this one also an orange gem. This is a fire type of comic. The only downfall is, 1, it might be hard to get for a lot of people. 2, it is a little bit pricey. It's a $6 comic book. And then 3, since it takes so long to come out, you can forget kind of what's going on with the story. So you might have to read your issues back to back to back, or read them when they all come out. Guys, let me know what you think of Mark Spears' Monsters. Our next indie book that we're talking about today, guys, is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is issue 6. I am so pissed I wasn't able to get this book physically because it's an absolute masterpiece the way it is drawn. 28 pages for the price of $5, written by Jason Aaron, and the art is done by Juan Ferreira. I am so happy this guy is the new ongoing artist for this series, because that alone makes me want to pick up this book every single month it's going to come out and stick with a Turtles series. It is so well drawn. The characters look great. Donatello looks absolutely sickly, because if you read one of the last issues, we got to see kind of what he went through, and he is basically psychologically broken in this comic book. He carries around a freaking dead rat, and he calls him Splinter, and he doesn't even know that he's sick, right? And then you got Leonardo, and you got Michelangelo, and you got Raphael in this book, and they're together for the first time in this series in the sewers in New York. And it's not the happy-go-lucky turtles that you've known and loved for a while. They're at ends with each other. There's a reason why they hate each other, and it's basically showcased in this actual issue. And not only are they struggling to fight against, again, themselves, but they're struggling against the Foot Clan, and it is just insane. So they can't seem to be working together. There's a missing leader here, and the moment in time in this book, what made me upset was a situation that happened with Donatello in this comic book. So absolutely, guys, this book is a must read. Please pick it up. It is so good. And at the end of the day, this one gets rewarded that red gem, which means that it is a top pick of the week for me, and the only red gem independent comic book in my eyes, which means this gets rewarded the indie gem of the week, or the indie comic book of the week. So we'll go into a list of books and I will decide which book gets that all-important role of independent comic book of the year. But definitely check out Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles issue 6. You're not going to be disappointed. So there you have it, webheads. There are my thoughts on the independent comics that I read for this week. I wish I would have gotten them more physically, but hopefully these delays and all this bullshit with Diamond and all this stuff gets cleared up soon so we can all get our comic books back again. And as always, guys, I'm going to leave you more content right here for you to click on. And of course, guys, support the local comic shops. Keep buying, keep collecting, but always remember, read your comics so we can have great comic conversation just like today. Guys, thank you so much and enjoy your weekend.